Last week, I filmed a YouTube video about forgiveness and what that looks like as a Christian. I tried to film the intro and the outro on Tuesday because we had a busy week, plus we were getting packed to go out of town for a few days. I had to get my kids from Missouri. But in the middle of all of that, I found myself right smack dab in the middle of an argument with someone that said some pretty nasty things about me. But the thing that they said that got me the most was when they said that I was bless your heart fake. Now, that attacked my character, that attacked my religion, like all of it. And it hurt me to my core. I was angry. I was hurt. I was hurt by that phrase. I was hurt by the other things that were said. All I wanted to do was defend myself and to shout back everything that I knew to be true about me, and also everything that I knew to be true about them. Essentially, what I was wanting to do was behave the way that they were behaving. I wanted to say some nasty things back to them. But instead, I sat down, I recorded the intro and the outro to the video. But when I watched it back, it was fake and it was forced and it did not look like it was of God. I had to delete it and I had to do it again on a completely different day. Oh my gosh. I even thought about just skipping the whole video, not even worrying about it. Don't worry about posting on social media for that week, because who am I to talk about forgiveness when I am still so angry and hurt? It's hypocritical, right? Well, the devil will use people as a distraction to keep you from doing the work of God. Do not let him do that, guys. Let's not let him win. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Bite Size Bible. This week I am recording from Williamstown, Kentucky. I am in an Airbnb in the basement. I hear people walking around and taking showers, so I will do my best to edit the audio, but please show me some grace. I would really appreciate it. My family visited the Ark Encounter and it was quite the experience. I recommend that you do it if you have the chance. We spent right at 7 hours in there, so plan for your whole day to be at the Ark. I am so glad that you're here for another episode. If this is your first time listening, my goal is to share bite-sized pieces of the Bible to make it easier to digest, because we all know that sometimes the Bible can be hard to understand. So on Tuesdays, I talk about our church's sermon, and on Thursdays, I talk about my personal Bible readings and what popped out to me. So let's get to it. This week's sermon was on Nehemiah 6 and how the devil uses the people in our lives to distract us from the purpose God has for us. So a brief background on Nehemiah, because it's not a book that we commonly read, right? So the Israelites were exiled to Babylon and their temple was destroyed. Many years later, they are allowed back into Jerusalem. And Nehemiah is tasked with helping to rebuild the temple and the walls of the city. Forgive me if I'm saying these names wrong, but Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem are three men in this chapter that are trying to stop Nehemiah from completing his task. They tried to lure him into a trap, lie about him, intimidate him, scare him. The devil uses these same exact schemes today with us to try and keep us distracted, and he uses the people in our lives to do it. So in verses 1-4, Sanballat and Geshem are constantly inviting Nehemiah to meet them about 30 miles outside of the city. Guys, 30 miles isn't far to us, but 30 miles is or was far back then, like walking, riding on a camel. That's a good little distance. Their intent was to harm him, but Nehemiah stayed focused on the work that he was doing because he knew that they were up to no good and that God's plan was most important. For us today, this could look like invitations to things that we know God wouldn't want us to do. This will be different for everyone, but it could be like hanging out with your friends that don't support your lifestyle, going to events that don't bring glory to God. It can even mean talking about others in a hurtful way, watching things on TV that we shouldn't be watching, anything that separates us from God and the purpose that He has for our lives. In verses 5-9, Sanballat sends an open letter to Nehemiah accusing him of plotting a rebellion against the king so he can become the king himself. So I didn't know this, but an open letter is basically, like when they say so and so printed an open letter. It's like for us, it's on the internet, but it's an unsealed letter. So back then, an open letter allowed the messenger and anyone else to be able to just open it up and read what is written, and they have all the knowledge of everything in there. It was a tactic. It was done on purpose. He didn't forget to seal the letter. It was done purposefully so that the messenger could read it. And we all know that word of mouth spreads faster than anything else. This was the perfect way to spread lies about Nehemiah. He had no plans to overthrow the king and to take charge. He wanted no part of that. But it was in the letter, so everyone that read it thought it was true, and they told everyone that they knew. And of course, Nehemiah denies these false accusations. He prays. I believe it says that he fasted in the Bible. He prays for strength, direction, discernment. And through all of this, he never stops doing the work that God has given him. For us today, verses 5-9 would look like people spreading lies about us, accusing us of things that aren't true, like what happened to me in that argument that I was talking about earlier, making us look like bad people. This was a pretty significant point in the sermon that hit me because our pastor said that we cannot do anything about our reputation because our reputation is, we can behave in a way that is glorifying to God, but we cannot control the things that people say about us to other people. We absolutely have no control over that. But what we can do is we can keep controlling our integrity. So continue to do the things that we know are right, to do the things that are pleasing to God. Keep living for God and let Him just sort everything else out. For me, this is really hard to do. It drives me crazy when someone says something about me that I know to be lies. I want to defend myself and hold them accountable. If you're like me, let me know in the comments and we can pray for each other because it is a difficult thing. In verses 10-14, a prophet named Shemaiah tries to scare Nehemiah into hiding in the temple by falsely claiming that enemies are coming to kill him. So Nehemiah recognizes this as an attempt to make him act out of fear. Guys, the discernment that Nehemiah has is incredible, and it's only because he has a solid relationship with God. That is going to be our foundation for everything. Stay firm in your relationship and trust Him. So for us today, this could look like us being afraid to do the will of God because of something someone says, like being called bless your heart fake, and how it made me doubt that I should even be making YouTube videos or podcasts. That is the devil being able to use that information to get in my head, convince me that this isn't worth it and that I should not be speaking to others about God. He wins when we do that. It could also look like when we start second guessing what we know God has told us because we don't feel qualified. God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. That is how Satan uses others to distract us. When we are afraid to do what God has called us to do, it's a win for him. And he knows he hasn't won the war, but these small little victories, they're what he's looking for. So what do we do when the devil is using others in our lives to distract us? Okay, like I said before, make sure you're standing firm in your relationship with God. Make sure you're setting aside time to read your Bible, time to pray. Time to listen to what he has to say, just to be still and listen. Ask him for the things that you need to live a courageous life. He will give you everything you need. Another thing you can do is set clear goals. When you know what God has commanded you to do, set up visuals, reminders on your calendar, a plan, all the things to keep his purpose at the front of your mind. Part of this is fasting too. I have never done fasting, but I have recently been talking to a friend about it. And they told me the other day that fasting sets us up to be completely dependent on God. It's at that point when we have nothing else to lean on that God can truly speak to us because we are in a position to hear from him. We will have the discernment needed to accomplish the task God has assigned us. Through this entire chapter, one of the main things has been Nehemiah's discernment. Nehemiah knowing the best thing to do in that situation, and that's because he's relying on God and he is letting him lead him. You will also need a good support system. Some of the people that you love most in your life will be the ones that are distracting you from what you should be doing. They'll convince you to hang out with them when you shouldn't, or talk about others, or question your ability to be able to do what you've been called to do. They might even ask you if you're sure you even heard from God. Surrounding yourself with people that seek God and want to do the same will help you stay focused on what matters most. I'm not saying you should get rid of everyone in your life. I'm just saying make sure you have a good support group that is going to encourage you in your walk with God. Learn how to identify and avoid distractions. This is difficult for me. Like I said before, I want to defend myself and I want to hold people accountable. I think that comes from a place of wanting to be right, which can be sinful. And I just want to be heard. Like I want to be acknowledged, that they hear what I am saying. And that is a huge distraction because people are going to be people. The people are going to people, guys. And sometimes trying to be heard and understood and acknowledged is just it's an epic waste of time. Had I not even engaged in the conversation that I talked about in the introduction, I would not have been in an argument at all. I wouldn't have had to film the intro and the outro twice, and I wouldn't have spent days being annoyed and hurt by something that the other person probably hasn't even thought about since they said it. So that's a waste of my time, not theirs. The devil did his work. The devil did his thing. Despite all of the attempts of these guys to distract Nehemiah, he did not falter. He kept his eyes on God and he finished the task. Guys, we're no different than Nehemiah. If we stay focused on God, our distractions will still be there, but we will have the tools that we need to keep moving forward. So what are your distractions? Who are your distractions? This week, I challenge you to read Nehemiah 6. Take some time to figure out what or who your distractions are and spend intentional quality time with God so you can stay focused on what's important. God. God is what is important. Again, thank you for being here. Listening to this podcast ensures that it continues to grow and reach more and more people. If you got something out of this, please share it. You never know who needs to hear this message. Also, like and subscribe so that this channel keeps growing and we can reach as many people as possible. I am not a pastor. I've never been to Bible college of any kind. I'm just a woman that loves God and wants to share that love with as many people as possible. If you have any prayer requests or want to learn more about giving your life to Jesus, comment below and I'll be sure to get back to you. You can also follow the prayer request link and it will send me a direct message. I post new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so I'll see you guys soon.